The testing chamber hummed with that particular frequency that made Jake Morrison's teeth ache. Somewhere between a dentist's drill and a dying refrigerator. Perfect. Just perfect. Candidate Morrison, please proceed to the central platform. The voice belonged to Examiner Vrel, a stick-thin Zenthari whose species had evolved on a planet where the most dangerous predator was apparently a particularly aggressive fern. Jake rolled his shoulders, cracking his neck loud enough to make 3 of these flinch. Good. Let them remember that humans didn't come from cushy garden worlds where the biggest threat was insufficient rainfall. Yeah, I'm coming. Keep your antennae on. The galactic cooperation required all member species to pass standardized survival testing before allowing their citizens to travel freely through known space. Something about ensuring you wouldn't panic and accidentally start a war the first time you encountered a mousetrap or whatever. For most species, this was a formality. A nice, relaxing stroll through a controlled environment while sensors monitored your stress responses. For Deathworlders like Jake, it was supposed to be impossible. Earth's classification as a Class 12 Deathworld meant that humans were considered somewhere between criminally insane and suicidally reckless by galactic standards. A planet where the weather actively tried to kill you. Where the local fauna had evolved specifically to end your bloodline. Where even the plants could ruin your whole week if you touched the wrong one. The testing chamber materialized around him. Holographic, but convincing enough to fool most senses. Jake found himself standing in what looked like a Thrasian jungle. Purple vegetation dripped with something that was probably meant to be menacing. The air felt thick, humid, wrong. Your objective is simple, Vrel's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Survive for 1 standard hour. Locate the emergency beacon. Signal for extraction. Do try not to die. The paperwork is quite extensive. Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence. Jake had barely finished speaking when something screamed in the canopy above. Not a human scream. Something that made human screams sound like a pleasant lullaby. The kind of sound that evolution had specifically designed to make your brain dump every bit of adrenaline it could manufacture directly into your bloodstream. He grinned. Oh, you guys have no idea what you're dealing with, do you? The creature dropped from above. All tentacles and teeth and bioluminescent threat displays. Probably supposed to trigger some kind of primal fear response. Jake sidestepped, grabbed a hanging vine, and swung himself up onto a branch that groaned but held his weight. Come on, is that the best you've got? Through the observation window, Examiner Vrel was making frantic notes. The other observers looked concerned. One of them, a Pelzari named Cheen, was gesturing frantically at her datapad. His heart rate barely elevated. Is the monitoring equipment malfunctioning? Negative, Vrel muttered. All systems are functioning within normal parameters. The human is simply experiencing what his species calls excitement rather than fear. That's insane. Indeed. They're from Earth. What did you expect? Back in the simulation, Jake had located what he assumed was the emergency beacon. Naturally, it was positioned in the exact center of what looked like a carnivorous plant the size of a small house. Because of course it was. Right. Let's do this the fun way. He picked up a rock. Weighed it in his hand. Threw it with the casual precision of someone who'd spent their childhood playing baseball. The rock sailed through the air and smacked directly into what looked like the plant's sensory organ. The plant convulsed. Thrashed. Released a cloud of spores that would probably induce paralysis in most species. Jake held his breath, ran straight through the cloud, grabbed the beacon, and rolled clear before the plant could recover. Beacon acquired. Time elapsed, 7 minutes, 32 seconds. Do I get bonus points for style? Silence from the observation room. Then, quietly, Cheen spoke. That's not possible. The Thrasian Maw Bloom scenario has a predicted minimum completion time of 43 minutes for species with comparable physical capabilities. Perhaps, Vrel said slowly, we've been underestimating Deathworlders. The simulation dissolved. Jake stood on the platform, beacon held triumphantly above his head, when every alarm in the facility started screaming at once. Not the testing alarms. The real ones. Emergency lighting bathed everything in harsh red. Through the observation window, Jake could see Vrel and the others scrambling, their calm academic demeanors replaced with something that looked a lot like panic. Jake's combat instincts, honed by a childhood on a planet that considered hurricanes a minor inconvenience, kicked in immediately. He was moving before conscious thought caught up. The door to the observation room slid open as he approached. Inside, chaos reigned. Displays showed something that made Jake's blood run cold. A transport vessel with civilian markings was caught in the gravitational pull of a nearby dying star. Life signs, 17. Time until hull breach, 26 minutes. What happened? Jake demanded. Vrel's translator struggled with the Zenthary's rapid-fire panic speech. Navigation error. They misplotted their jump. The rescue vessels won't arrive for at least 45 minutes. By then, the ship will have been pulled past the event horizon. There's nothing we can do. Nothing. Jake stared at the display. Analyzed the vectors. The gravitational forces. A dozen different ways this could go catastrophically wrong. Then he smiled. Not a nice smile. The kind of smile that had made his drill instructor back in Earth's Exploration Corps recommend him for the most dangerous assignments. Nothing you can do, maybe. Where's the nearest fast response craft? Cheen looked up, hope and horror warring on her face. Docking Bay 7, but it's only rated for short-range operations. The gravitational stresses near that star would tear it apart. No pilot would be crazy enough to attempt a rescue under those conditions. Lucky for you, Jake said, already running toward the door. I'm not from a planet that produces sane pilots. Get me cleared for launch and patch the transport's frequency through to my comm. Now. This is madness. You haven't even completed your survival certification. You're not authorized for solo operations. Jake paused at the doorway. Looked back. His expression was pure Deathworlder confidence mixed with something that might have been compassion. Examiner Vrel, here's the thing about humans. We didn't get to the top of Earth's food chain by following the rules. We got there by being too stupid to know when we're supposed to give up. Now, are you going to help me, or are 17 people going to die while you worry about paperwork? 30 seconds later, Jake was sprinting through the facility's corridors, Vrel's authorization codes uploaded to his comm, the layout of the fast response craft downloaded directly to his neural implant. The vessel was small. Sleek. Designed for quick hops between orbital stations, not suicide runs into stellar gravity wells. Jake didn't care. He'd flown worse. The cockpit systems came online with a cheerful chime that seemed wildly inappropriate given the circumstances. Jake's fingers flew across the controls, bypassing 3 different safety protocols and one that seemed to exist purely to prevent exactly what he was about to do. Morrison to facility control. I'm launching in 30 seconds, whether you clear me or not. Your choice if you want to skip the fines for unauthorized departure. Vrel's voice crackled through. You're cleared. Morrison. The transport's captain is Rena Vasek. She has 2 younglings aboard. If you die attempting this, I'm going to be very upset with you. Noted. I'll try to survive out of consideration for your feelings. The craft launched. G-forces that would have liquefied most species pressed Jake back into his seat. He laughed, adrenaline singing through his veins, and pushed the engines harder. The dying star loomed ahead like a malevolent eye. Its gravity well was already playing havoc with the ship's systems. Warning lights painted the cockpit in a Christmas display of impending doom. Transport vessel, this is Jake Morrison. I'm coming to get you. Sit tight and try not to panic. The voice that came back was strained but controlled. Captain Rena Vasek sounded like someone who'd accepted her fate but wasn't going quietly. Human, you're insane. The gravitational shear will tear your ship apart before you reach us. Probably. Good thing I'm too dumb to let that stop me. I'm going to match your trajectory, extend a tow cable, and slingshot us both out using the star's gravity. It's going to be bumpy. That maneuver is theoretically possible but requires precision that no organic pilot could achieve. The margin of error is less than 0.03%. Jake grinned, fingers dancing across controls, making adjustments faster than the computer could calculate them. Captain, I'm from a planet where driving in rush-hour traffic requires more precision than that. Hold on to your younglings. This is going to be fun. The gravitational forces intensified. The ship's hull groaned. Every system screamed warnings that Jake systematically ignored. He could feel it now. That perfect moment when instinct and physics aligned. When human intuition, evolved through millions of years of hunting prey and escaping predators, exceeded what any computer could calculate. He fired the positioning thrusters. The ship dove deeper into the gravity well, accelerating toward the point of no return. Every rational calculation said this was suicide. Jake had never trusted rational calculations. The transport vessel appeared on visual. Tumbling. Shields failing. 22 minutes until hull breach. Maybe less. Initiating cable deployment. Captain, when I say fire your remaining maneuvering thrusters, you fire everything you've got. Don't think. Don't calculate. Just do it. Understood, human. The cable extended. Magnetic clamps locked. The universe held its breath. Fire thrusters. Now, now, now. Both ships shuddered. The combined thrust fought against the star's pull. Not enough to escape. Exactly enough to alter their trajectory by that crucial fraction of a degree. Jake watched the numbers cascade across his display. Felt the moment approaching. That perfect instant when momentum and gravity would intersect. Releasing cable in 3, 2. Hold on to something. 1. The cable released. Both ships whipped around the star's gravity well, like stones from a sling. Forces that should have torn them apart instead accelerated them past escape velocity. The dying star released them, and they shot back towards safe space, riding a wave of gravitational momentum that would make physics professors cry. Jake hooped. Actually, hooped like he'd just won a particularly exciting game of basketball. Facility control. This is Morrison. Package secured. All 17 souls accounted for. Returning to base. Also, I definitely passed that survival test, right? Vrel's voice came through, shaky but relieved. Morrison, you insane Deathworlder. Yes. You passed. Please never do anything like that again. No promises. The two ships limped back toward the facility, emergency lights flashing, but everyone was alive. Captain Vasic's voice came through, quiet and awed. Human Jake Morrison. My people have a saying. The bravest warrior is the one who fights when victory is impossible. Today, you've shown us that humans don't fight for victory. You fight because surrender isn't in your vocabulary. Jake's grin softened into something more genuine. Captain, where I come from, we've got a saying too. It goes like this: hold my beer and watch this. Sometimes, that's all the philosophy you need. The docking procedure took another 12 minutes. 12 minutes where Jake had to listen to facility control running through every safety protocol ever invented, plus a few they seemed to be making up on the spot. His knuckles were white on the controls, not from fear, but from the effort of not saying something that would get him banned from galactic space before he'd even officially qualified. Morrison, reduce approach velocity by 0.3 meters per second. Copy that, control. Reducing velocity. Again. For the 5th time. Your sarcasm is noted and will be included in the incident report. Oh good. I was worried it wasn't coming through. The transport vessel docked first, and emergency crews swarmed it like ants on a dropped sandwich. Through his viewport, Jake watched as Captain Vasic emerged, carrying 2 small Korthan younglings who looked more excited than traumatized. One of them was waving enthusiastically in what Jake assumed was his direction. Kids. Same on every planet, apparently. His own docking clamps engaged with a thunk that reverberated through the hull. The moment the airlock pressurized, Jake was unbuckling and heading for the exit. His legs felt like jelly. The adrenaline crash was starting to hit, and he really wanted to sit down somewhere that wasn't actively defying the laws of physics. The airlock opened to reveal what looked like the entire facility staff crowded into the docking bay. Examiner Vrel stood at the front, data pad clutched to his chest, looking like someone who just watched their carefully organized life explode into chaos. Morrison. We need to talk. If this is about the safety protocols I bypassed, I had a really good reason. 17 reasons, said a voice from behind Vrel. Captain Vasic stepped forward, younglings now with another crew member. She was tall for a Korthan, with the distinctive ridge markings that indicated military service. Her eyes, all 3 of them, focused on Jake with an intensity that made him stand a little straighter. 17 lives that exist because a human looked at impossible odds and laughed. Well, I wouldn't say I laughed exactly. More like aggressive optimism. Cheen pushed through the crowd, her Pelzari features flushed with whatever emotion passed for excitement in her species. The telemetry data is incredible. You made 17,000 microcorrections during the approach. The gravitational modeling alone will revolutionize our understanding of extreme environment piloting. How did you calculate the release point so precisely? Jake scratched the back of his head. I didn't calculate anything. I just felt when it was right. The crowd went silent. Someone dropped a tool. It clattered loudly in the sudden quiet. You felt it. Vrel's voice was very small. Yeah. It's like surfing. You don't calculate when to catch a wave. You just know. Earth's oceans will kill you if you overthink things. Your oceans try to kill you? This is from a Zenthari engineer who looked horrified. I mean, not intentionally. Mostly. There was this one time in Australia with a box jellyfish, but that's a whole other story. Captain Vasic made a sound that might have been a laugh or possibly a suppressed scream. Human Morrison, my crew and I owe you a life debt. In Corthan culture, this is not a phrase we use lightly. You risked everything for strangers. Why? Jake looked at her. At the assembled crowd. At Vrel, who still looked like his universe had been turned inside out. He thought about how to explain something that felt as natural as breathing. Because they needed help. Because I could. Because sitting around watching people die when you might be able to do something about it? That's not survival. That's just existing. Humans didn't claw our way up from being prey animals to sitting in space stations just to watch bad things happen. Your species was prey? Another voice called out. Oh yeah. For like, millions of years. Big cats, bigger reptiles, things with more teeth than sense. Then one day, some ancestor of mine picked up a rock and decided that it was unacceptable. We've been making terrible decisions in the name of not dying ever since. Vrel stepped forward, his datapad now held like a shield. Morrison, there are procedures for this situation. Inquiries. Safety reviews. The council will want to interview you extensively. What you did today broke approximately 47 different regulations. And saved 17 lives. Yes. Which is why you're not being arrested. Instead, congratulations. You've passed your survival certification with what I can only describe as the most excessive demonstration of competence in the program's history. The crowd erupted in what Jake assumed was applause, though it sounded more like a combination of chittering humming and one species that apparently clapped with their feet. However, Vrel continued, raising his voice, there's another matter. Captain Vasek, you have the floor. The Corthan captain stepped forward again. She looked uncomfortable, which was impressive given she'd just survived near certain death. Morrison. Jake. What I'm about to ask is highly irregular. My vessel was transporting critical medical supplies to a colony in the outer reaches. Theta 7. An outbreak of crimson fever. Without these supplies, 3,000 colonists will die within the next 48 hours. Jake felt his stomach sink. Let me guess. Your ship's too damaged to make the journey. The gravitational stress cracked our primary drive coupling. Repairs will take at least 4 days. Every other available vessel is either too far away or lacks the necessary cargo capacity. She paused, her 3 eyes meeting his 2. Except for one possibility. Oh no. The facility has a mid-range cargo hauler. Outdated. Temperamental. But functional. It could make the journey in 36 hours with the right pilot. Please don't say what I think you're about to say. We need someone crazy enough to push an aging cargo hauler through routes that commercial pilots consider too dangerous. Someone who looks at safety margins as suggestions rather than rules. Someone from a Deathworld who thinks orbital slingshot maneuvers are fun. Jake looked at Vrel. I'm not even officially certified yet. I'm authorizing an emergency exemption. The paperwork will be horrifying, but I'll manage. The ship's probably a death trap. Almost certainly, Cheen chimed in. The reactor has a concerning tendency to fluctuate during stress jumps. The navigation system dates back to before modern standardization. And the environmental controls are optimized for Zenthary physiology, so you'll be cold the entire time. You're really selling this. Captain Vasek's expression softened. 3,000 people, Morrison. Families. Younglings. They didn't do anything wrong except live on a remote colony that seemed safe until a mutated pathogen appeared. The universe is random and cruel. But sometimes, if we're very lucky, it produces someone from a Deathworld who's too stubborn to accept that. Jake closed his eyes. Thought about going back to Earth. Telling his mom about his adventures. Maybe taking a few weeks to remember what it felt like to breathe air that hadn't been recycled 40,000 times. Sleep in a bed that didn't move. Eat food that wasn't reconstituted from powder. Then he thought about 3,000 people receiving news that help wasn't coming. That they'd drawn the short straw in the universe's lottery of random catastrophe. Yeah, all right. I'll do it. But I want hazard pay. And someone better pack me decent coffee. The reconstituted stuff tastes like sadness mixed with regret. The crowd erupted again. This time, Jake was pretty sure it was a genuine celebration. 2 hours later, Jake sat in the cargo hauler's cockpit, surrounded by systems that looked like they'd been built by someone's well-meaning but technically challenged grandfather. Warning lights blinked in what he hoped was a friendly manner. The medical supplies were secured in the cargo bay. His coffee supply was adequate if not abundant. Vrel's voice crackled through the comm. Morrison, I've uploaded the navigation data. The route includes 3 jump points. All of them are within acceptable parameters for a ship of that class. Acceptable parameters. My favorite kind. Try to bring the ship back intact. It's on loan from a very particular Zenthari merchant who will absolutely file complaints if it's damaged. No promises. This thing handles like a drunk elephant. I don't know what an elephant is, but that sounds concerning. You have no idea. Captain Vasic's voice joined the channel. Morrison, the colonists are being informed that help is coming. They're asking the name of their savior. What should I tell them? Jake thought about that. About how he'd come to this facility expecting a boring test and instead found himself hip-deep in back-to-back rescue missions. About how the universe had a funny way of taking your plans and laughing at them. Tell them it's just some guy from Earth who was too stupid to know when to quit. That should cover it. I'll phrase it more diplomatically. Probably for the best. Jake's fingers moved across the controls, initiating the launch sequence. The cargo hauler shuddered like a dog shaking off water. Several new warning lights joined their friends in what was becoming quite the festive display. Control, this is Morrison. Requesting departure clearance. Clearance granted. Good luck, human. Try not to make this a habit. Too late. The cargo hauler launched with all the grace of a particularly determined brick. Jake fought the controls, coaxing the aging vessel into something resembling a proper trajectory. Behind him, the facility grew smaller. Ahead, the stars beckoned with their infinite possibilities for things to go catastrophically wrong. He grinned. Right then. 3,000 people, one questionable ship, and approximately 35 hours to prove that humans are either the galaxy's best problem solvers or its most entertaining disasters. Let's see which one we are today. The first jump point is approached. Jake lined up the trajectory, double-checked his calculations, then triple-checked them because this ship looked like it might explode if he sneezed wrong. The jump drive charged with a whine that sounded disturbingly organic. Jump in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted. The universe turned itself inside out in that special way that made human stomachs perform complicated acrobatics. Then they were through, emerging in a region of space where the stars looked subtly wrong and physics seemed slightly negotiable. Jump 1 complete. Ship still in one piece. Reactor fluctuation within acceptable ranges if you're very generous with your definition of acceptable. He was talking to himself. That was probably a bad sign. Or maybe just a human sign. Earth psychologists had given up trying to figure out why humans talk to themselves, their vehicles, their plants, and sometimes their food. It was just what they did. The second jump point loomed ahead. This one was trickier. A narrow corridor through a region of unstable spacetime where one wrong calculation could scatter your atoms across 3 different dimensions. The navigation computer helpfully informed him that the success rate for this jump was 94%. 94%. Those are practically winning lottery odds where I come from. He made the adjustments. Felt that same intuition kick in. That Deathworlder sense that had evolved from millions of years of ancestors making split-second decisions about whether that rustling in the grass was wind or something with fangs. Jump 2. Let's dance. The cargo hauler plunged into the unstable corridor. Space screamed. Time hiccuped. Jake's vision went weird colors that probably didn't exist in normal physics. Then they were through, emerging exactly where they needed to be. Ha! Take that, probability. Humans, one universe, whatever, I stopped counting. The final jump point is approached. Beyond it lay the Outer Reaches colony. 3,000 people who didn't know that their salvation was currently being piloted by someone who'd learned to fly in Earth's atmosphere, where the weather actively tried to murder you and the training philosophy was essentially sink or swim, except with more explosions. Jake checked the cargo bay readings. Medical supplies intact. The reactor is holding stable. Ship temperature is uncomfortably cold but manageable. Everything looked good. Which was, of course, when the proximity alarm started screaming. Oh, come on. 3 vessels appeared on his sensors. No identification signatures. No response to hails. Configurations that matched known pirate groups who operated in the outer reaches, preying on vulnerable cargo ships. Because of course, the universe couldn't just let him have one straightforward rescue mission. Jake's jaw set. His hands moved to the weapons controls. The cargo hauler wasn't a warship, but it had basic defensive systems. And more importantly, it had a pilot from a planet where evolution had spent millions of years perfecting the art of creative violence. Attention, unknown vessels. This is Jake Morrison from Earth. I'm transporting critical medical supplies to people who will die without them. You've got exactly 10 seconds to change course before I show you why humans don't have natural predators anymore. The comm crackled. A voice responded in broken standard. Human. Cargo. Give. Leave alive. Counter-proposal. You leave, keep your ships intact, and I don't have to explain to facility control why there are new debris fields in this sector. The pirate ships moved into attack formation. Jake smiled. That particular smile. The one that had made Examiner Vrel nervous. The smile of someone from a planet where even the weather had a kill count. All right then. Let's make this educational. He slammed the cargo hauler into a dive that should have been impossible for a vessel that size. The pirates, expecting standard evasive maneuvers, fired where he should have been. Their shots connected with nothing but vacuum. Jake looped back, used the cargo hauler's mass as a weapon, and clipped the nearest pirate ship hard enough to send it spinning. Not destroyed. Just very clearly outmatched. That's one. Who's next? The remaining two pirates seemed to reassess their life choices. They broke formation, retreating at speeds that suggested they'd suddenly remembered pressing appointments elsewhere. That's what I thought. Run home and tell your friends that humans are officially operating in this sector. Spread the word. The colony appeared ahead. Jake could see the settlement lights. Somewhere down there, 3,000 people were waiting. Hoping. Believing that help was coming. He initiated landing procedures, bringing the cargo hauler down with a gentleness that the old ship probably hadn't experienced in years. The landing gear deployed with concerning grinding noises, but they held. The cargo bay doors opened. Medical personnel swarmed in, securing the supplies with efficient desperation. A Corthan official approached Jake as he exited the cockpit, legs still shaky from 2 days of constant flying. You're the pilot. Morrison. That's me. You're human. Last time I checked. The official's 3 eyes were wet. We had given up hope. The projections said help couldn't possibly arrive in time. But you came. Why? Jake thought about that question. About everything that had happened since he'd walked into that testing chamber, thinking this would be just another boring certification process. About Captain Vasic and her younglings. About Examiner Vrel and his datapad. About 3,000 strangers who'd become his responsibility the moment he said yes. Because I'm human. Because we're from a planet that taught us that survival isn't about accepting what's possible. It's about making the impossible happen anyway. Because somewhere in our evolutionary history, one of my ancestors looked at a saber-toothed tiger and thought, you know what? I bet I can take that thing. We've been making questionable decisions in the name of not quitting ever since. The official reached out, touched Jake's shoulder with one hand. Then I hope your species spreads across the galaxy. The universe needs more people who don't know when to quit. Oh, we're spreading. Just give us time. And maybe warn people first. We tend to make quite the entrance. Jake's comm buzzed. Vrel's voice sounded tired but happy. Morrison, the colony confirms successful delivery. Well done. Also, there are 14 different committees that want to talk to you when you return. Sounds fun. I'll be there as soon as I remember how my legs work. Take your time. You've earned it. Jake found a quiet spot overlooking the colony. Watched the lights flicker in the growing darkness. Somewhere down there, people were receiving medicine. Living. Continuing. Because one human had been too stubborn to accept that some problems were impossible. He pulled out his datapad. Started composing a message to his mom. Hey Mom. Remember how you said space was going to be boring? Well, funny story. Above him, the stars wheeled in their ancient dance. Below him, 3,000 heartbeats continued their rhythm. And somewhere between those two infinities, Jake Morrison sat and smiled, thinking about all the impossible things he'd make possible tomorrow. Because that's what humans did. That's what Deathworlders did. They looked at the universe's rules and said not today. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe looked back and said fair enough. Subscribe and like to my channel for more sci-fi stories.